This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Iran celebrated a national day of nuclear technology on Monday as it marked its landmark entry to the world's nuclear club. 1 year to the day, Tehran announced a major breakthrough in enriching small amounts of uranium.
اعلام می‌کنم که از امروز کشور عزیز ایران در زمره کشورهای تولید کننده صنعتی سوخت هسته‌ای قرار می‌گیرد. برای اروپا
Natanz nuclear facility in central Iran today hosted President Ahmedinejad, who announced Iran's expanding its atomic work, enriching uranium on an industrial scale. The president said Iran last year mastered the fuel cycle technology, adding, "The indigenous know-how Tehran has secured on the back of 1 year-long tireless efforts by its experts has helped the country begin industrial-level enrichment." He further said big powers are trying to push for a barrier in the way of Iran's progress, adding the Iranian nation will not let the enemy reap benefits when it comes to Iran's national interests. Ahmadinejad said Iran has been an NPT member for the past 35 years, but that such membership has failed to serve the purpose of Tehran. The president continued, Tehran has provided the IAEA with the required documentation that its nuclear program solely seeks peaceful intentions and that the inspectors with the UN nuclear watchdog have kept close tabs on Tehran's civilian program. President Ahmadinejad said Iran's non-military nuclear program has put to the test the fate of the UN Security Council and its permanent members as to how much they honor international laws, rights of nations, and whether they are committed to the rules they have laid down themselves. Earlier, head of Iran's Atomic Energy Organization, Reza Aghazadeh, said Tehran has shown steely determination to draw on endeavors by its youths to materialize its comprehensive atomic plan with full fuel cycle atop the agenda. He further said Tehran could manage to install, complete and implement its nuclear equipment at a record fast pace, posting a 13% rise in that regard. The IAEO chief said Iran prides itself on efforts to explore, excavate uranium reserves, produce yellow cake as the raw material for nuclear fuel, and make UF6 in its Isfahan atomic facility. On the sidelines of Nuclear Technology Day celebrations, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, Ali Larijani, spoke of plannings being made for the fresh round of talks with the EU. He said the European side has calmed down in favor of Iran's nuclear rights. Iran's top nuclear negotiator said talks bear fruit only when they fall within an appropriate framework. Larijani continued Tehran is resolved to press ahead with its peaceful nuclear program, which disapproves of atomic weaponry. He went on to say Tehran may be obliged by Parliament to review its nuclear policy if it faces deeds in bad faith by the other side. In the meantime, hundreds of university students gathered outside the Iranian Atomic Energy Organization in Tehran on Monday to mark National Nuclear Technology Day. Chanting anti-US and anti-British slogans, the ralliers reaffirm the Iranian nation's right to a civilian nuclear program. And let's have a look at some other events around Iran marking the National Day of Nuclear Technology.
of the same soul. In creation, all come from one great whole. Ache of each part cannot pain the core that other parts cannot tolerate no more.
More details about the Iranian nuclear file in the following report.
Iran receives a new promise from its president, Ahmedinejad. This is what he said himself last February. Great achievements would be announced by April 9th. On that scheduled date, Ahmedinejad was at the Natanz facility to announce that more centrifuges have been constructed and are capable of enriching uranium. This scientific achievement should not be underestimated, as it will expedite the enrichment of uranium. Thus, Iran will be able to produce the necessary fuel needed to produce energy or nuclear warheads. The West, especially the 5 major countries and Germany, have failed in blocking Iran's path, just as the 2 UN Security Council resolutions have not succeeded in convincing Iran to stop its course.
Please raise their hand.
The UN Security Council had passed 2 resolutions imposing sanctions on Tehran. The latest resolution gave Iran 2 months to suspend uranium enrichment. The Iranian leadership rejected this, and Ahmadinejad has reiterated this rejection once again. Despite all this, Tehran is kept in contact with the West, if only symbolically, communicating with the EU Foreign Policy Coordinator as well as with the International Atomic Energy Agency. The IAEA, the nuclear watchdog, believes that by refusing to let it set up monitoring cameras in the underground portions of the Natanz facility, Iran has increased the United States' fear that it is using uranium enrichment to produce nuclear weapons. While Tehran believes that these are unjustified fears, the United States has strengthened its presence in the Arab Gulf Sea. Most recently, the U.S. carried out what it described as the largest military maneuvers in several years. Many analysts fear that escalations on both sides of this crisis will be transformed into military confrontations right in the midst of the world's richest oil region.
Meanwhile, the families of who Iran calls 5 diplomats are being held by the United States forces in Erbil in northern Iraq, met with a representative of the International Red Cross in Tehran. The families of the detainees called on the Red Cross to play an active role and assure them about their detained family members. They also requested video images of them. The Red Cross representative said that this is difficult to do. However, the international representative confirmed that his committee is prepared to relay letters from these families to the detainees. The Red Cross representative had met twice with the 5 detainees.
Is there any realistic alternative to a strike on Iran's nuclear facility? IBA's Leah Zinder asked former Mossad chief and former Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, David Kimchi, his thoughts on the continuing nuclear threat posed by Iran.
Do you believe there's any realistic alternative to a military strike against Iran's nuclear facilities?
Well, you know, it's a very difficult thing for us to evaluate that, us poor mortals who live here. They are worried by strong sanctions. There's no question of that. They are worried. The sanctions of today are not strong. They're not serious. They're not serious enough. But if they were more serious, if the world really did cooperate and stop all trade and traffic, etc., with Iran.
Which it probably will not do because of economic interests of Russia and other countries.
Yeah, although the Russians have shown surprising cooperation in the last couple of months. Surprising, very much so. There, I would say that if that were to happen, then I believe this could be in the place of a military attack. My only hope, my own personal hope, is that the ever-increasing, I would say, effervescence in Iranian society, the young people who want to live freely without having the yoke of fundamentalist Islam on them, who want to listen to Western music if they want to, who want to go to parties, all this thing. There is a growing feeling in Iran that they want to change, and there are many, many people in Iran who would love to see a change of regime. The president of Iran is becoming increasingly unpopular and disliked in Iran. And there are increasing voices in Iran that say he is leading us into a situation of confrontation with the whole of the rest of the world. There is that as well going on in Iran. Iran is not just one solid mass of fundamentalism. It's much more than that. And don't forget, we were once very, very good friends of the Iranians, very good friends, a long time ago. So there, I still believe that eventually what will happen is there will be a change inside Iran. And I'm only hoping that the Americans and the Israelis and everybody else are doing everything they can to hasten that change, because that would really bring a good answer to your question about whether there's any alternative.
Right. Well, while that is certainly devoutly to be wished, at this time it does not seem likely that that is going to happen anytime soon. If it does not happen anytime soon, I repeat my question: do you believe that a military strike is inevitable, and must and should Israel be involved?
So I believe it's not inevitable. I believe we should not lead it by any means. I believe that a military strike could become counterproductive from 2 points of view. One, it's not going to be like it was in Iraq, where there was one target, where you go in, you smash that target, and that's that. The Iranian nuclear facilities are dispersed over dozens of different targets, many of them deep underground. So that even if there is a military strike, it's not 100% certain you can completely disable their efforts. That's one point. And the second point is it would create a tremendous backlash within the Iranian society. The Iranians are very patriotic. They always have been. They're very pro-Iranian. Not necessarily pro-regime, but pro-Iranian. And if there would be a military strike against Iran, Iranian society would stand like one person behind this regime, whereas my hope is that that regime will eventually collapse. This would prevent any idea of collapse of that regime if there would be a military strike. So it has to be thought through very, very carefully, and one should try all other options before one goes to a military strike.
And one last question. Do you expect that there will be a war next summer, as some Israeli intelligence and experts do believe, that might involve Iran and Syria?
Next summer is around the corner, in a couple of months' time. No, I don't believe it. Definitely not.
Iraq has bid farewell to yet another year of occupation, as Iraqis mark the 4th anniversary of the fall of their capital. Since the 2003 U.S.-led occupation in Iraq, the country's security situation has worsened. The country has witnessed a wave of violence that brought the security situation to what it is today. Iraq has become a country of death that is torn by sectarian violence. The past 4 years of occupation in Iraq has not moved from memory the tragic events that helped reshape the country's history. Some of these events included the infamous toppling of the former Iraqi president Saddam Hussein's statue in the Farduz Square in the heart of the Iraqi capital. In 2003, the Americans marched into Baghdad through the Gate of Farduz, or as it has become known to Iraqis, the Gate of Hell.
يوم 9 أبريل المكتوب على جبين عاصمة الرشيد كان يفترض أن يكون يوما للاحتفال.
April 9th was supposed to be a day to celebrate freedom in the Iraqi capital of Rashid. However, hundreds of thousands of supporters of Shia leader Muqtada Sadr took to the streets of Najaf to protest the US-led occupation in Iraq. In a massive demonstration that was described as the Million Man March, the protesters, who chanted anti-US slogans and burnt the American flag, called to end the occupation in Iraq. On this fourth anniversary of the fall of the Iraqi capital, the Fardous Square was turned into a ghost town, where only sound of occasional gunfire could be heard. Meanwhile, the Iraqi army and security forces were fully deployed in the streets of the Iraqi capital and imposed a 24-hour curfew. The year 2006 was indeed the worst year of the U.S. occupation in Iraq. During the past year, the sectarian violence took a turn for the worst, with the airing of the dramatic trial of the former Iraqi president and co-defendants. In addition, a new wind of political change has blown in the two capitals of war, Washington and London. Ismat Tarabi reports.
مثقلا بالأصفاد سار في طريق مظلم.
Shackled in chains, he was led in a dark hallway and into the gallows. Saddam Hussein was hanged at dawn on the first day of the Eid al-Adha holiday. A few days after Saddam was executed, his half-brother Barzan Takriti and Awad Bandar, the former head of Iraq's Revolutionary Court, were also hanged. The bodies of the three condemned were buried in the village of Auja in Tikrit, where the body of Taha Yassin Ramadan was also later buried. In addition, Abu Musa al-Zarqawi, who was on Washington's terror list, was killed in a U.S. airstrike. Contrary to public belief, the death of Zarqawi has not de-escalated the security situation or helped end the armed disobedience in Iraq. In fact, during the past year of the war in Iraq, sectarian violence has reached a critical stage. The country was held hostage by sectarian death squads, which did not only target Shia and Sunni leaders, but also targeted religious shrines. The result was an ethnic cleansing and a forceful migration among Iraq's Shiite and Sunni citizens alike. In an attempt to contain the sectarian violence, Iraqi religious leaders signed the Mecca National Reconciliation Agreement, which was never implemented. The deteriorating security situation in Iraq has echoed in Washington, where American voters turned away from George Bush and gave the vote of confidence to his Democrat opponents, who took control of the Congress. Following the U.S. midterm elections, there was a shakeup at the White House, and the former Defense Minister Donald Rumsfeld, one of the U.S. war hawks on Iraq, was the scapegoat. Amidst these developments in Iraq, the U.S. President George W. Bush announced a troop surge plan. While the U.S. wants to increase its troops in Iraq, Britain announced in 2006 that it would withdraw 1,600 of its combat troops and limit the duty of its remaining troops to provide assistance to the Iraqi security forces.
During
the past 4 years, Iraq has witnessed a series of assassinations that targeted the country's political figures. This news overshadowed the country's political and security situation and impacted all aspects of life in Iraq.
The following report examines the string of assassinations that targeted Iraqi political figures during the past 4 years. Since 2003, many Iraqi officials have been killed and scores of others have escaped assassination attempts. A look at the history of violence in Iraq reveals that the security situation took a sharp downturn in the aftermath of the 2006 Samarra bomb attacks on the Imam al-Askari shrine. Many Iraqis believe that this incident, which is still under investigation, did not receive the attention from the authority they were hoping for. The attack on Al-Askari shrine overshadowed the social, political, economic, and security situation in Iraq. In 2006, phrases like unknown armed assailants and assassination attempts and many others were added to Iraq's book of violent words. On March 25, 2007, Iraq's Deputy Prime Minister Salam al-Zobai escaped an assassination attempt in Baghdad. A suicide bomber strapped with an explosive belt blew himself up near al-Zobai compound in the Green Zone, killing 6 people and injuring 15 others, including al-Zobai and 4 security guards. A source affiliated with the office of the Deputy Prime Minister dismissed reports by knowledgeable sources that the attack was an inside job carried out by a member of al-Zobai's security detail. On February 26, 2007, Iraq's Vice President Abdel-Abed Mahdi narrowly escaped an assassination attempt as a blast ripped through a government meeting hall in Baghdad. Nearly 36 Iraqis were killed and wounded in this attack on the headquarters of Iraq's Ministry of Municipalities and Public Works compound. On November 20, 2006, Mahmoud Mushahidani, the head of the Iraqi parliament, escaped an assassination attempt as 2 bombs were detonated inside his car in the Green Zone area in central Baghdad. Also on November 28, 2006, unknown assailants carried out a mortar attack on the home of the Iraqi parliament member Iyad Jamaluddin. This was the 4th attempt on Dean's life in the past 4 years. Iraq's armed groups did not only target Iraqi political figures, but they also targeted the relatives of many officials. In 2006, 3 brothers of Iraqi Vice President Tariq Hashimi were assassinated in 3 separate incidents. Moreover, on February 8, 2006, Sami Muzaffar, Iraq's Minister of Higher Education, escaped an assassination attempt as a roadside bomb targeting his convoy exploded in central Baghdad. In addition, Iyad Allawi, Iraq's Prime Minister and the head of the Iraqi national slate, escaped 9 assassination attempts during the past 4 years. On April 20, 2005, and while Allawi was on his way home in Baghdad, a suicide car bomber blew himself up in the middle of Allawi's convoy. Furthermore, on July 17, 2004, Malik Duhan Hassan, Iraq's Minister of Justice, escaped an assassination attempt after his car was ambushed in Baghdad. Hassan's nephew and 2 of his security guards were wounded in the attack. On May 28, 2004, Salama Khafaji, a member of Iraq's government council, escaped an attempt on her life in Baghdad. Also, on March 28, 2004, Nisreen Birawi, Iraq's Minister of Municipalities and Public Works, escaped an assassination attempt in Mosul. 3 of Birawi's security guards were killed and 4 Iraqi civilians were wounded in the attack. On the 4th anniversary of the war on Iraq, Iraqis expressed disappointment in their government for failing to save them from the cycle of violence, which has consumed dozens of Iraqi civilians and military personnel on a daily basis. Amidst violence and chaos on one side and incompetence of the Iraqi government on the other side, many Iraqis fear that their country is rapidly drifting away into the unknown. It has been 4 years since the war started in Iraq, and Iraqis are more pessimistic than ever, especially considering that the facts on the ground and the future Iraq hopes for are indeed going in 2 opposite directions.
يسيران باتجاه متعاكس.
The disagreement continues between the Lebanese ruling majority and the opposition over the international courts and political representations in the cabinet and parliaments. This reflects the reality on the ground in Lebanon. So far, there is no response to the proposal that was made by Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri. He had suggested that the ruling majority and the opposition go to Riyadh to negotiate and find solutions to the crisis. However, some believe that this proposal is premature because the contesting parties need first to reach an initial agreement on possible solutions. Many political observers believe that this is not the case at all.
The Democratic Gathering leader Walid Jumblat accused the Lebanese opposition in general, and Hezbollah in particular, of trying to create an ethnic strife in his stronghold in the Mount of Lebanon. Jumblat also accused the Lebanese army of ignoring the arms smuggling by Hezbollah. These accusations generated strong reactions, especially from Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah. He said that he wants a strong national army that can maintain Lebanon's stability and security, while the ruling majority wants a sectarian army. Nasrallah also accused them of reaching power by deception and by taking advantage of the unfair law that was passed in 2005. He also praised President Emil Lahoud as a man who stood firm in Arab and international arenas and withstood conspiracies, and confirmed that Lahoud will stay in office until the very last second of his extended term.
If it was someone else other than Emil Lahoud, he would not put up with this. Every day, he is treated with rudeness, insults, and sarcastic articles. They have done everything to Lahoud aside from assassinating him. Despite all this, the man stays in office with dignity and self-respect. When he went to the Arab League summits in Khartoum and Riyadh, he defended the Lebanese national principles and interests with loyalty.
Meanwhile, ministers from the ruling majority demanded that the Lebanese Prime Minister Fouad Siniora replace the 6 ministers who left in November and appoint new ones in their places. Nasrallah responded to this demand by saying that the Shiite ministers had resigned to stop the ruling majority from taking Lebanon into the American-Israeli political sphere of influence. He added that the noise that was made by the ruling majority reflected the collapse of their plan to rely on foreign forces, which was suicidal to begin with. Nasrallah said that the internal Lebanese dialogue has reached a deadlock, and that the international court was planned in advance with ulterior political motives, capitalizing on the death of late Prime Minister Hariri.
The new approval of the international court was done illegitimately. We do not make our findings public because we are serious about the international court. We have decided not to disclose our findings until we have a serious dialogue. I do not want to disclose a secret. Yes, the Saudis had asked us to disclose our findings. The Syrians had asked us to disclose our findings. And the Iranians had asked us to disclose our findings. The Saudis actually asked the Syrians and the Iranians to disclose their findings. We said that we will not disclose our findings to anyone. When there will be a serious dialogue, we will disclose them.
Nasrallah advised the ruling majority to reach an agreement with the opposition before it's too late, and that time will show that he is right. The Lebanese crisis reached a deadlock because the Lebanese opposition insists on its demand of 19 plus 11 as the formula for the new cabinet, and the ruling majority refuses to give 1/3 of the parliament seats to the opposition. The question remains, how can the crisis be resolved when all options have been exhausted?
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Please visit linktv.org/Mosaic for more information about these broadcasters, or to view previous Mosaic programs, obtain program transcripts, or receive the weekly Mosaic Intelligence Report. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. If you value this program, please send your tax-deductible contribution to Link TV, either through the website or the mailing address listed on your screen. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.